Hey everyone, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. It's another live show, the first and potentially only of the day, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. On today's show, we're going to be talking about how to reset. Arsenal are off to warm weather training in Dubai, and a lot of the players, even the ones that are rehabbing, are in the group. And overall, I think a lot of Arsenal fans are trying to understand where do we go from here. I told you guys, if and when we go out of the FA Cup, the next 2 weeks are going to be about panicking about the January transfer window and basically mourning our season that has died in January, right? And so on this show, I want to kind of talk about how we move on from here in this season and beyond that. Because listen, Arsenal are at the point in whatever project that we feel like we should be winning things. And so there are some things that Arsenal need to be doing, looking at, and really, I think, thinking about ahead of the second half of the season and the summer window to get us back on track. Because I don't think that the decisions that were made this past summer are not going to have grave consequences. Those grave consequences will be missing out on titles and trophies and things like that. So this next 6 to 12 months have to go perfect in order for us to get back on track. And so, yeah, we can, the rest of the season play a lot better and things like that. But once you drop a certain amount of points in the Premier League, it's kind of like it is what it is, Arsenal can still, make a deep run in the Champions League, which would be great. Make sure that they secure top four, all those types of things. But listen, time to look forward and reset. And there's several different things I want to chat to you guys about. So make sure you guys get into the chat. Let me know what you guys are thinking and feeling, all that type of stuff. Yes, I'm tired. Yes. So anybody that's in the chat right now that's like, oh my God, Jessica, are you tired? I'm just like, yes. And I'm just now looking at my sweatshirt and there's like this little thing right here. That's from my friend's dog. I washed this sweatshirt after I had went to my friend's house and hung out with her and her dogs. The fact that the stain has not come out, this is dog slobber. What the fuck? I'm so upset about this. I'm just like, ugh. You're lucky I love dogs, okay? But Junior says, good morning, fellow inmates, just the best up. I'm good. I cannot complain. Beyond my sweatshirt being ruined because of my friend's big old dogs with weird slobber, I'm good. I can't complain. Boy says, plain and wary, Walter Sousa. DG even saying Cozy or Dewberry should be played. If these guys aren't going to be playing, then loan them out. And Selim says, why they go to Dubai. Warm weather training, it's a 2-week break. And so instead of staying in London, they're going into basically almost like a second version of preseason, which I don't think is the worst idea. I think they need to get away and reset and kind of get their lives together a little bit. Not just Mikel Arteta, but the players as well. They just don't look like they're up for the fight. They don't look like they're up for the fight, and they look like players that are weighed down by expectations. And that's what happens when you're at Arsenal. Last season, at the beginning of last season, there was relatively no pressure on these players. Nobody expected them to be in a title race. No one. The fact that we were so good, almost like nobody really realized it until we got into the second half of the season. And so now they're playing with massive pressure off of the back of last season, and they're not really dealing with it well. I don't know if it's physical ailments, like players are playing with huge knocks and they're not getting enough rest or whatever, but the team has just never really looked right this season. And so they need to get themselves right, because there are things to still play for. Even if we don't have the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup and maybe even the title to fight for, really, there's still things to fight for, like making sure you get Champions League next season, going in a deep run in Champions League, and not embarrassing yourself, because it's the Arsenal, you still have to do what you got to do, So I just, I'm at the point with this season where it's like, okay, what can we do in order to salvage whatever's left and move forward and go into a better direction? Aha says, basically Arteta needs to have a Pep last season, Stones inverting from center back or Conte going to a back three in 16-17 moment. Did we see a glimpse of it on Sunday with 4-2-3-1? I do think things need to change. From a tactical standpoint, from an energy and environmental standpoint, from a squad management standpoint, everything needs to change from now. Whatever we were trying to do wasn't working. The over emphasis on, being controlled and playing slow and all these types of things, trying not to get scored against and all this kind of stuff. Those types of things need to be modified. He has to give his front players a little bit more freedom. And if a 4-2-3-1 allows them to do that because they have a better base at the base of their midfield, then that's what we need to do. We're not having an issue getting into the final third. We're not having build-up problems. We are having problems just being decent in front of goal, And so whatever it's going to take, Arteta needs to get into their heads, figure out a way to take the pressure off. I think the biggest problem that these players have is not so much like the difference between a 4-3-3 and a 4-2-3-1, even though I do believe that a 4-2-3-1 would help. They're not playing with any sort of joy or freedom. They're playing with so much pressure on them, and the manager has to figure out a way to alleviate that from them a little bit, to make them feel as though the pressure is something that should be a privilege and something that they should lean into instead of be afraid of. Stop being afraid to lose the ball. Stop being afraid to make mistakes. Stop being afraid to shoot the ball. Have fun. Relax. You're playing for Arsenal. You're not going to jail, And so it needs to figure out a way to change their mindset. And anybody that says that a manager cannot change the mindset of a group of players is lying to themselves. I've had conversations of people saying, well, the players just need to find the confidence on their own. So if they don't need a manager to help them, then why do we have them? Why do we have a manager? Why do we talk about the differences between managers beyond tactics? It's because those things also matter. The man management, getting into their heads, psychologically getting into their heads to make them perform at their best. And so if none of that matters, and it's just about the tactics and setting them up, then why are managers getting paid millions of pounds? We know that there's a difference, and Arteta's not doing a good enough job. He has absolutely demoralized his front players. They don't know how to score goals. Actually, they know how to score goals. They're afraid to shoot. They're afraid to make a mistake. They feel as though, I don't know if they feel like if they make a mistake, the chance will come and they don't feel any pressure to get the next goal, or if they feel like they're going to miss one goal and then the next chance is not going to come. I don't know what it is, but he needs to get in there. He needs to get in there and have them play with a little bit more freedom. Because I don't necessarily feel like there has to be massive tweaks to the tactics. I think when you have Martinelli out there, maybe you need to tweak some things, whatever. But he needs to figure out a way to get them into a good mental headspace. Like they're not in one, and it's psychological at this stage with the goal scoring. And that's all that really needs to change, because as much as people are talking about, the defense and we're leaking goals and blah, 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 goals change games. If you score the goals early, it demoralizes the other team and they don't really have those opportunities. We gain control of the match and they give up. And so I still don't even think we have a defensive issue, whether you have Ramsdale back there or Raya back there, whether you have Ben White or Zinchenko. I think our main issues are up front. Saka, Jesus, Havertz, Martinelli, none of these guys are firing. That's the main problem. Habu says the players aren't fit and sharp enough to compete. That's also something that has been, I don't know if you guys have felt this way. I want to know in the chat what you guys think, but these players haven't really looked sharp at all. There's never been a point in the season where I felt like we played 4 or 5 games in a row and the players were like playing out of their skin. Now, when we first started the season, there was a lot of talk about conserving energy and not pressing as much, but I just don't think the players have it in them. Sometimes mental fatigue starts to plague you physically. So maybe the mental side of everything and being so stressed out and overthinking everything is keeping them from performing at the best of their physical ability. But there are also players that have not taken a rest in 2 years. You have players like Ben White, Saka, and Odegaard that for the last 2 seasons have been playing every single match. Now, Ben White, this first season, he played at center back. So, it's a little bit different. But he has played a lot of minutes, and he looks ragged. He really does. He does not look like himself. People are rewriting history on Ben White and saying that he was never good, but that's a total fallacy. Last season, a lot of people were talking about how he was an unsung hero and very underrated. So let's not lie. Ben White doesn't look like himself. He's a good player, but he doesn't look like himself. Saka doesn't look like himself. Lost his burst, doesn't have a speed. Jesus doesn't look like himself. Martinelli doesn't look like himself. All of these players are either on the edge of fitness crisis or they're mentally fatigued. Either way, why did we start out the season without being able to come in fresh? You know, why is it that we look so ran down? Because nobody else really looks like that, you know? Um, Lucas says, people are missing the point. We will go back to form. The issue is that we are already out of the cups, and current struggle probably means we missed out on the title. And it should be a season progression. And I agree that we're going to get back to a level of form. We're not going to stay like this. Of course not. We'll probably turn it around against Crystal Palace. You know, like I have no doubt in my mind that we will gain some level of form, but we're not talking about fighting for a European spot where you can drop as many points as we dropped and still be comfortably in the European spaces. We're talking about winning a title, and we've dropped too many points. Anybody that's looking at the mass and saying, well, if we win our next 3 games, well, you also have to win your next 3 games and also hope that Manchester City fall off of a cliff and Liverpool fall off a cliff. And history would show that those 2 teams tend to get better as the season goes on. And we don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, what's the likelihood of us dropping less points than those 2 teams? Very unlikely. Liverpool is already 5 points ahead of us, and I think Manchester City are level on points with us. Remember, there was a point in time where Manchester City, they were dropping points left and right, and everybody was like, oh my God, Manchester City don't look the same. But we were also dropping points in that same time. Silly points at that, going to Aston Villa and not taking the 3 points, right? And so, yeah, like, of course, we'll turn around our form, and probably once the pressure is like really off, we'll start to play again, because that's what Arsenal does. Like, when the pressure goes off, we start to play again, right? When we're further back, we start to play again, right? But we've dropped too many points. We've dropped too many points. And so unless, you know, something happens with Manchester City and Liverpool and they just completely fall off of a cliff and we turn into the team we were last season at the beginning of the season, the likelihood of us winning the league is very slim. It was already small to begin with. You know, we never really got that gap. If we were sitting 5 points clear at this point in the season, I'd still probably not think we're going to win it, because we had like, what, an 8-point gap last season, and we couldn't get the job done. So yeah, I'm just keeping it 100 with you guys. You know, I'm not saying that like Arsenal are never going to win another game, but we've already dropped too many points, you know? And so Arsenal just need to figure out a way to stop the bleeding, you know, win a couple of games on the trot, stop the bleeding, stop the nonsense, stop the conversations, get back on track, you know, and hopefully we get some players back, you know, in the fold. And honestly, when you're in a point in the season where you're kind of feeling like, okay, well, you know, things aren't really going our way, it would not hurt to try different things and to also like get some new blood in. One of the things that really helped Mikel Arteta is when he was going through a similar vein of form the season where he probably should have been sacked. He brought in Emile Smith-Rowe and played with Saka and Tierney. And I'm not saying you have to bring in kids, but what I am saying is that sometimes you just have to change things a little bit. You have to give a fresh look, you know, and a genuine fresh look for people that are on the outsides of the team that have been banging on the door to get in, that haven't gotten a sniff. Give them a couple of games. Give them a run of games. Light a fire under Martinelli's ass. Shit, light a fire under Saka's ass. Make them feel like if they don't play well, that they're going to lose their spot. Because there's also a level of complacency in our front players. They know that no matter if they play, they can play bad for 5-6 games in a row and still start every single game. There's no psychological push to be your best every single day. There just isn't. Because you have Emile Smith-Rowe ain't going to play. Trossard's not going to play, and Reece Nelson's not going to play either. The only player that can come in is Nketiah and start above you, you know? And so there needs to be some sort of psychological shift, whether that's putting more pressure on them to finish their chances. And if they don't finish their chances, somebody else takes their place, whether it's playing other players in their position and giving them a run of games and making them fight for their spot again, whether that's just switching a player here or a player there, you know, something needs to change in the second half of the season. You can't just continue to do the same things, because I don't think, even though I think our form will go up, I don't think that we have enough pressure in the group, if that makes sense. There's not enough pressure to finish those chances. When they were missing sitters against Wolves and Brighton, there should have been consequences. There was no consequences. And they continued to miss those chances all the way up until now. And now we're dropping points because of it. So there needs to be some consequences. You know, there needs to be, you need to use your squad a little bit, even create a faux level of competition. Because I don't necessarily feel like if Reece Nelson and Trossard or Emile Smith-Rowe got runs of games that we would drop off of a cliff. I really don't. I really don't. I don't think that we would drop off of a cliff. I think it would create a better environment, a more competitive environment. Trossard has started games for Arsenal and scored loads of goals. He's one of our top scorers this season with barely any minutes. Do you really think that our level is going to drop so badly if we play Trossard for 4 or 5 games? Not even 4 or 5. Let's just say 2 or 3 on the bounce. It won't. You know, play Emile Smith-Rowe. Play Emile Smith-Rowe. Why not? You have him there. Play him. And if you're not going to play them, sell them, because this is nonsense. Seth, thank you so much for your super chat. Says the club needs to get better at selling players. It does. But I don't know how to do that. They haven't seemed to really learn their lessons. We seem to do the same things every year. We hold on to players too long. We diminish their value by sitting them on the bench and yanking them out halfway through a game, or 25 minutes into a game, 35 minutes into a game, yanking them out, making a big deal out of a poor performance, never see them again, play them out of position. And then when we want to sell them, there's no suitors. Until Edu learns his lessons, we're not going to sell players better. We just don't. Like, we're fundamentally not good at selling. And it's not something that I feel like is just something that we're trying to understand. It's something that we know for facts. We don't sell players well, no matter who it is. The fact that we only made 70 something million off of the players that we sold last summer, 30 of that came from Balogun. That's ridiculous when you look at all the wastage that's still in the squad now. There's so much wastage in the squad. It makes no sense, you know? Chris says we need to sell players when stocks are high, not when they get 15 minutes a season. And how about if you think you're going to sell Emile Smith-Rowe and Nketiah and Reece Nelson, or try to in the summer, start playing them now. Again, we've already kind of fucked up our season. As much as that sounds pessimistic, we've already put ourselves in a situation where it's bad. So we need to try something different, add something else different into the team. It would not be that bad to see Emile Smith-Rowe and these guys that are just hanging around doing nothing get some more minutes now. You're not in a situation where you have to just keep playing this starting 11 until they're already running to the ground. Saka can barely run. Try something else and do it for a couple of games. What can you lose at this point? We're in a top 4 race. I don't know what to tell you. Second Soj says, how can the squad be so deficient after 4 years of building? Klopp has won the league and every other trophy, did a 1-season rebuild over the summer, and is essentially back above Arsenal. I mean, I get what you're saying. I would also remind people that Klopp and Liverpool were not in a rebuild. They sold a couple of midfield players and brought in 3 midfield players. That's not a rebuild. They have virtually the same team that they had before. You know what I mean? They lost Mane and Firmino, but they replaced them with Gakpo and Nunez the season prior. So they were never in a rebuild. They just needed to bring in players to replace their old players in midfield. So for me, it's not that surprising to me that Liverpool got better midfielders than Jordan Henderson and, somebody younger than Fabinho, and were able to get back to the level. They did not lose Alisson or Trent or Salah, and those are their world-class guys. Do you know what I mean? So they weren't really in a rebuild. I get what you're saying, but we definitely have not maximized our time being one of the better teams in the league. We haven't maximized that time. We haven't maximized the money that we've had. We haven't. We've wasted it. We did not have to, some of the stuff that we've done has made no sense whatsoever, money-wise, so we waste a lot of money. The amount of DMs that we bought, the amount of left backs that we bought, how many times and we're actually actively looking to buy another DM and another left back. And we bought that position 3 or 4 times, but we've still not bought a striker or another winger. We've been asking about a winger for 2 summer windows now, and we haven't brought one in. So it's no real surprise that now Martinelli and Saka are broken down. I don't know if that's physically or mentally, maybe a bit of both. And we can't get any change out of them now. We have no striker, So, but we keep buying left backs and DMs. Stop buying left backs and DMs. We've done that. we have to use the money better. But I get what you're saying. I don't feel like Liverpool and Klopp are a good example because they really, if you only need to buy two players, you're not really in a rebuild. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we have not maximized anything yet, and Arsenal need to get better at that. They really do. This next summer window coming up, they really have to make sure that this team finishes in the top four. And I know that it's like, how could you say that? We're still in a title race, but it's a slippery slope. We're in fourth now. If we lose a couple more games, we're definitely in the top four scrap. We have to make sure that we have to finish in the top four and continue in Champions League so that we have the ability to attract the types of players that we should have bought the season prior, the summer prior. We have to kind of like untangle our mess, the mess of spending 65 million on Kai Havertz. Big mistake, not because he's not the worst player in the world, but it's just a mismanagement of funds. You have to buy the player that you probably should have bought when we bought Fabio Vieira, because Fabio Vieira is just not a player that I think he's more talented than Arteta has managed him to be. I don't think he's really gotten a fair shake, and he's just going to end up like Kiwior out on loan, like Sambi and Nuno, and nobody's going to ask questions at all. Why none of these players could have been used at all. You see what I'm saying? So Arsenal just need to get real. Johnny J. Wick says Liverpool are constantly evolving. They never need a rebuild. Yeah, when you constantly are changing, that is very true. Like they didn't let their team completely fall apart. That's for sure. Mata says, have you let go of your Fabio stocks, Jess? No, I have not. I won't be gaslit into thinking every single player that comes in that's not a part of the starting 11 is just a bad player. I won't, because what have we seen since Mikel Arteta has been here? Anybody that's not in the starting 11 looks like shit. Whether it's Tierney, whether it's Emile, whether it's Fabio, whether it's Kiwior, whether it's Sambi, anybody that's outside of the starting 11 does not look good. So at a certain point, I have to stop asking questions of the players and start looking at the manager. I just don't believe that a player that was that highly rated out of Portugal, or a player like Kiwior that was so highly rated out of Italy, or a player like Sambi that was highly rated out of Belgium, are just all terrible players. And there's no culpability from Arteta. And if we were just buying terrible players and we've just wasted almost 100 million on squad players that aren't good enough, that still falls on the manager and Edu anyway for me. So I'm not going to throw away my stock. Like, I genuinely do believe that if Fabio Vieira goes somewhere else, he'll look like his normal self. He'll brighten back up, and people will be like, why couldn't we get that out of him? Because Arteta doesn't know what he's doing. When he has players that are not just like the players in the starting 11, he doesn't know what to do, but he buys them. I don't get it. Him and Edu buy these players. If you bought Fabio Vieira, you should have known that this player is like, can only play in the forward positions as like a creative forward, kind of like how Foden plays for Manchester City in a forward role, or as a number 10. But you play him as an 8 and you expect him to do the Xhaka role and you think he's going to do a good job. Sorry, doesn't make any sense to me, but and then once they lose their confidence, then we start, oh, well, look, they're just not good players. I'm like, they don't have any confidence, but listen, they could all just be bad players. I don't believe that they are, though. I'll be honest. I don't think so. Back in the Net podcast says, first of all, big up yourself, Jess. Thank you so much. I really want us to get a striker, but I don't want us wasting money and screwing up our summer plans. I don't think we're going to get a striker. Just to, I know there's 200 of you guys in here, so you're probably like, well, what's going on with transfers? My friend, nothing is going on with transfers. Fabrizio Romano and the Mirror have all come out and kind of like, talked about the Amadou Onana thing is something that is not really happening. Everton have no approaches from Arsenal or any other club for Amadou Onana. They have the financial issues, but they haven't gotten any approaches from Arsenal, which is the exact opposite thing of what, the Belgian media is saying, which is probably more about the agent of Amadou Onana going out to those Belgium outlets and speaking about him to try to get him out more than anything. So we're probably not going to get him, which I'm fine with, because listen, I told you guys yesterday, I don't think we should buy him. I don't. I'm happy to hear that we're not really interested in him. But in terms of a striker, I think David Ornstein has said it multiple times that Arsenal are more looking towards the summer to do something like that. Everything about what we're going to do is based on the summer window now. They're not going to go outside of the plans. They're not going to think about how they did last season. When we were in the throes of a title race and we were ahead, they bought Jorginho and Trossard. That was their push for the title move. And as much as I like those two players, it kind of was a letdown after being, linked to, Mudryk and Caicedo. There was no middle ground. It was either go big for a player that we should probably have bought in the summer or should be buying in the summer, a summer plan, or fail to do that and then bring in filler players. They can't do the Luis Diaz. They don't do those types of deals. A player that is like a smart, creative market move. They don't do that. They don't do smart, creative market moves. They either do filler players that are from Premier League clubs that, are stopgaps, or they go for big signings for summer signings. That's it. They don't have an in-between. So I'm not surprised that they can't pivot. I'm not surprised that they're looking at the window and they're just like, they're stuck in the mud and they're paralyzed from their bad decisions from the summer. I'm not surprised because it would require them to be creative. It would require them to be ruthless with the players that deserve to be moved on. And they can't do that. Not when it matters, so I'm not surprised that we're probably not going to get anybody, a lot of people were, in January, just go out and get Diamande and go get a striker and a da-da-da. I'm laughing. I'm like, you guys, know your club. We'd be lucky to get that in the summer. We're definitely not getting that in January. They're not pivoting, and they're probably looking at the season and saying, well, we're in and around, the top four. We'll probably be in Champions League again. It's fine. We're going to go for a striker in the summer, and then we'll be in phase 5 and it'll be fine. It's not really a big deal because the club never really seems desperate to win, in my opinion. What they do doesn't say desperate to win. It says we're going to do this plan and we're just going to kind of stick with it and go slow. And they don't seem desperate to win. So their desperate to win was Jorginho and Trossard. Put that in your head. As good as those players are, that was their thing. Second Soj says Kivior is a center back, never been a left back, and clearly comfortable playing there. The manager loaned out a natural left back to play a center back in that position. Kuvi says, hi, Jess. I don't think Arsenal will sign anyone this month. Most of the names being mentioned, like a striker, Zubimendi, are for summer deals. And once they start talking to you about the summer plans, they're not going to bring in anybody. And so I've completely if anything happens, it'll be some left back on loan or some nonsense like that. But it won't be anything big or anything that's going to change anything. That's why I'm kind of like, they need to reset and try to get the best out of the group that they have. Arteta's not getting the best out of what he has right now. So giving him more resources at this point as well for me is a little bit like, if somebody's a waster, they waste a lot of money. You have to start looking at them and say, why would I give you more money? How about you do something with what you have? Figure out a solution with what you have. You have more than a lot of other people. I think our viewpoint on our squad is more based on the lens that Arteta sees the squad in versus the actual reality of the squad. He makes it seem like anybody outside of the starting 11 is nonsense except for Nketiah. That's it. And so we see it like that. Oh, well, we don't have anybody on the bench that we can use. There's no other tactics that we could use. There's no other tweaks that we could do. We just have to continue to do this. And we just have to sell these players and buy new ones. We're going to have the exact same problems with whoever comes in. I'm telling you right now, because he can't get anything out of the group that he has. And these players are not that bad. They may not be world class, but you don't have to be world class to get more out of what you got. He wastes. He's like, it's like he has these pep palette, but he's on like a Arsenal budget. Like we don't have £50 million world-class signings just sitting on our bench. We don't. You have to get more out of what you got, Joseph says, Kroenke said it himself when he first arrived, he's not here to win silverware. Imran says, Jess, would you take Lewandowski at Arsenal, say for $50 million on a 2-year contract? Not at this stage. I'd prefer us just wait to the summer and bring in somebody, the striker that we deserve, a striker that, has been waited. We've waited for 2 seasons to, we've known we've needed a striker, but we've waited 2 seasons. I want that striker. I don't want some cut price guy that we could have gotten before I want the guy. Arsenal cannot be let off the hook now. They cannot go into this summer window and not bring that striker. If they turn around and bring in some bum, I'm going to be, and Lewandowski's not a bum, but he's a short-term fix for something, a long-term problem. We need the guy. We need the guy. Like, as I think Lewandowski would be like, if he was just chilling somewhere on a loan for the season, like, that would work. But I just feel like we're not even in a position to be panicking like that anymore. You know what I mean? So yeah, Chris says, I know in hindsight is great, but we originally did want Mudryk last Jan. We did. We did. We did want him. And we ended up, we got Trossard instead, which was more of like not a panic, but he's a filler because he's nothing like the player that we went after, and he's being treated like a filler too. Like, I just don't think Arteta rates him very highly. I think he was a recommendation from AirPod Albert because he's Belgian or whatever, or he knows him. They know each other, if that makes sense. So he recommended Trossard. Trossard was available. We went out and got him, and Arteta's treating him like a player that he didn't want. So they just need to go out and get the winger that they've been trying to buy since Rafinha, but they've neglected to get because they keep buying DMs and left backs. Buy the attackers that we've been needing, because maybe if you'd done that, Saka and Martinelli wouldn't be where they are right now. There's too much pressure on them to recreate something that we all knew was going to be hard for them to recreate. And Arteta set them up for failure. And so Arteta and Edu is both of them, Boy says ESR is dynamite in the hands of 19 other EPL managers, by the way. Imran says, just would you? Oh, yeah, I already read that one. Joseph says, oh, no, I read that one. Sorry, you guys. I'm like still waking up a little bit. Social Join says Trossard is a stopgap. Gasim says the problem is any guy we bring in has to work very well. So the summer is the best thing. We're going to have to redo the summer window that we should have had. That is what's frustrating. And so we've already made the mistake. It is what it is. The damage is kind of done. Hopefully the damage stops from here, because it can't get any worse from here. We just have to kind of settle the ship a little bit. You know what I mean? And so this next summer window is going to be about undoing what we've done. And so my feeling is that what's going to happen in the summer window, if things go the way that they should go, is we'll buy the striker that we should have got and the midfielder that we should have bought, and Kai Havertz will end up being a squad player. That's kind of how I feel what will happen. Like, he's going to be a very expensive squad player. And maybe Arteta will use him because he seems to like him a lot. He seems to have put a lot of faith and a lot of, risked our season a lot on the back of a player that we didn't need. Lucas says, yes, he coached him in the Belgian league. Couple young things says the majority of strikers fans are still in developmental stage. I mean, that's just the market though. I feel like the idea that we're just going to be able to go out and get, a prime Lewandowski, Kane type is very few and far between. But that doesn't mean that you can't bring in somebody that can absolutely change the trajectory of your club. Do you know what I mean? They may need a little bit of development. They may need a little bit of work. I'm not saying you have to go out and buy Højlund. There's definitely a group between Højlund and Kane. Do you see what I'm saying? And so Arsenal just need to identify who that player is. They're probably playing at the top level. They play in Europe. They're between the ages of 22 and 25, and they just need to be in the right environment, and they need to have the right tools. They need to be a gunman, somebody that only cares about scoring goals, somebody that when they get in the box, they know how to strike the ball, somebody that's not shy and is not afraid to be the guy in the team. There are players like that out there. You just have to figure out who they are. And Arteta is going to need to get his thinking cap on and figure out a way to get the most out of them, because so far he's really struggled to get the most out of attacking players. That has been his Achilles heel. He can set up a defensive setup. He can do the off the ball stuff. He can do the build up. He can do all of those things. But what he has not figured out is how to create a consistent attack beyond the individual qualities of the players that you have. Because if Saka's just not doing it and Martinelli's just not doing it, it falls apart. It just does, He couldn't get anything out of Aubameyang. He killed off Lacazette. He's basically killed off Gabriel Jesus as well. So my feelings on the whole thing about the striker is that, yeah, we may go into the market. It may not be what we want. It may not be, there's not going to be a Harry Kane just chilling somewhere for us to buy. You're going to have to take a little bit of a gamble on somebody, but an educated gamble can go a long way. An educated gamble can go a long way. It does not mean that you need to go buy Evan Ferguson, who's definitely not ready at all. But you can go out there and maybe look at a Vlahovic or a what is his name? You guys know who I'm thinking about. It's the guy that's at Sporting. Go get that guy or a Sesko or whatever and put them in a good environment to be successful. Now, Sesko is a really good option, and I would really like him. He's a little bit younger, but the other two are a little bit older. Vlahovic is 23, and the other guy, his name is freaking escaping me, and it's driving me insane. Why can't I remember your name? What is your name? I have to look it up now. I have to get it. You guys will tell me. I'm just going to look in the chat because I know you guys are telling me. What is his name? You guys know. Yes. Him. Yes. Him. Those are players that you have to look at and make an educated guess on whether or not they can make the step up to Arsenal. That's up to Edu and them to figure out. But I definitely think there's value out there to be had. I just don't know if Arsenal can get it because they tend to miss the mark quite a bit. You know, instead of getting Kudus or getting Bruno Guimaraes or getting Paquetá, we've gotten, you know, Fabio Vieira, who I love, but you could have gotten Paquetá instead for the same money. You know, you could have gotten Bruno G and not had to buy Georgie. You know what I mean? Like, there are choices that have been made, you know, and I don't think Arsenal have the best talent ID. I don't think they have it. Santiago Jimenez, exactly. You need to make an educated gamble on a player that's probably not, you're not going to be able to just buy a Lewandowski or a Kane. We know that. And Osimhen is a risk in himself because of the fee and maybe the injuries and stuff like that. And you probably can't get him anyway because he'll probably end up at Chelsea. So Arsenal are going to have to make a very educated gamble on a player. But if you have good scouts and you know what you're looking for, you can get a bagsman. You can. There's enough out there. There are enough true number 9s out there that if you put them in the right circumstances and you create a lot of chances for them, they're going to put the ball in the back of the net. They are. They have to have the physical qualities, be big enough, strong enough, fast enough, all those types of things. Ball striking, please get somebody who can hit through the ball, please, because I'm tired of these guys not locking their ankles, you know. But yeah, I think they have to make an educated gamble. Let's see. Unknown C says, I just don't trust Arteta and Edu with the transfer market. 8, 9 good signings, almost all out of almost 30 in their tenure, 33% hit rate. Yeah, they're having a lot more misses than hits these days, but they have to look at that and change the way that they think about things. They need to get maybe some different scouts out there. They need to maybe not lean so heavy into data and Premier League proven and lean a little bit more into eye tests. They need to and do the simple things. Stop overthinking things. Stop trying to get a bunch of versatile players and start getting players that can do their job to the best of their ability. I think that's another problem that we have is that there's too many players that have been brought in to play out of position because out of the sake of being versatile. And so what you end up having is a player that doesn't really fit that. Not everybody is Ben White. Not everybody can be a center back and be molded into a good right back. We've tried it with Kivior. It's failed. I also think it's failing with Tomiyasu because he can't stay fit long enough to play the role. And he's a center back. Let's be real. Like, he's a center back, you know, so stop buying players for the sake of versatility and playing them out of position and just buy guys for the position that they play. Buy a striker to strike, buy a winger to wing, buy a midfielder to midfield. You know, if you start doing those things and stop buying players for the sake of versatility, then maybe you'll get a little bit more out of the players that you buy. Because a lot of the players that we bought was off of the back of versatility, and you're playing them out of position and they're not playing well. Fabio Vieira is versatile, but he has to be in positions that emphasize his ability to play in the pocket, whether that's out on the wings and coming central or starting off central. That is his role. So he's not versatile enough to play the number 8 role in the way that Arteta wants our number 8s to play, which is a heavy emphasis on off the ball. Odegaard is a player that's had to learn to be better off the ball because Arteta's 8s require off the ball work. Lots of it. Even Kai Havertz, lots of off the ball work. So even though Fabio Vieira is versatile, meaning that he can play off of the wing, he can play in the number 10. He's not versatile enough to play in a position that doesn't suit his his natural characteristics as a player. So, you know what I mean? Most number 10s can play on the wing, but they still play like number 10s. So is this versatility gimmick has to end. Buy players to play in the positions that they're supposed to be playing, and you'll get more bang out of the buck, I think. T Power says holiday to Dubai, reward for failure. I think warm weather training is fine. I mean, what's the point of just keeping them in London for the sake of making them, they're going to have to train anywhere, get them out in the sun and get their minds right. I don't have a problem with them going to Dubai, if I'm honest with you. And it was already planned, so what are you supposed to do? Say you're not going to go to Dubai and keep you in London for the sake of it? That doesn't make any sense, LJM says Chris Wood would be perfect. I mean, if we want to finish mid-table. Boy says, if Chelsea don't make Europe, the repo man is coming for their ass. Guess there is the silver lining to the season. Second Soch says, more specialists, yes, utility hybrid players. Social Join says, Tommy can't play 4 games in a row. So, same with Zinni. Foxy says, can see Jonathan David joining Arsenal. I don't massively rate him, but he's decent. Are we linked with him? You guys, please, seriously. I'll tell you, literally, if we end up with Jonathan David, I will be so devastated because he's not good enough. There's a reason why he's still where he's at. I see AFTV talking about it. Oh, Manchester United and Aston Villa are interested in signing him. Not us, thank God. There's nothing about Jonathan David. He's better than Eddie, but less than Balogun, in my opinion. I'll be honest. I just don't think that this is the profile that we should be going after. We should be going after taller, stronger, faster, physical presence. I don't want another 5'9" striker. Don't do this. Don't do this. Thank God the link is very weak. Because he's not, to me, he's not the guy. He's not the guy. No, he's not the guy. At all. Go after a real striker in the summer. Not don't do it. Aris says, I watched David for my country. He's not that good. He's not. To me, he's literally just in that same category of the short, kind of small kind of striker mold, but not better than Balogun. He's lower than Balogun. He's not as good as him. So it's a no for me. Art says, plus imagine if you get a player like Benzema, the experience and the killer instinct he has in the Champions League, aka the only competition we have chance left in competing for. I don't know if you guys realize as well that getting Benzema would require us to basically sell everything because his wages are just too high. There's no way that we can bring in Benzema. We've exhausted not only our spending cap, but our wage cap as well. So we can't even bring in a player like Benzema. It's you cannot do it. We physically cannot do it. It cannot happen. It won't happen. So as much as people are talking about it and saying that those are things that we should do, we can't do it. We can't, so this, and I just don't, we needed to spend the money properly in the previous summer. All this other stuff just feels like fantasy, bring in Ronaldo on a loan, bring in Benzema on a loan, bring in Lewandowski on a loan. These all sound like fantasy things that if we really think them through, we know it's never going to happen. So, Arsenal need to figure out how to get the most out of what they got right now. Make sure that they finish in the top 4, making sure they don't embarrass themselves in the Champions League and go again in the summer and stop making the same mistakes over and over again. That's all it is, No. Art says Jonathan David is a tragic deal when you have prospects of Osimhen and Sesko. I agree. There's just no reason to buy another striker that's small. It's funny to me that Arsenal it's it would be funny if you went out there and Arsenal are so desperate to be this physical, strong, tall team, but they have one of the shortest goalkeepers and a short ass striker, which those are the positions that you would imagine that you want the bigger players. Do you know what I mean? Besides your defense. So yeah, Imran says Sesko is a very good option. Versatile striker would fit into the Arsenal system. I agree. He would need some zhuzhing, of course. He's not the finished article, but again, an educated gamble. Who can you get that you can put in your system and help get better over the next 2 or 3 seasons, but also adds 15 goals to your season, non-penalty goals. That could end up being a Sesko. He does score a lot. He scores when he comes in for RB Leipzig. He doesn't start, but he does score goals, and he has all the physical attributes of a top quality number 9. It's very rare that you find a top quality number 9 that's 5'9". It's very, very rare. So, if we're going to go to a classic number 9, go get somebody that's strong and pacey and, and can bully his center backs. Don't go out there and get a short dude. Don't go out there and get a short dude. Chris Summer says he doesn't even start for Leipzig. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that he's not a good enough player. Who do they have starting in front of him? Openda? I think Louis Openda or somebody like that. That guy's good, and he's ahead of him in the pecking order, probably because he's a little bit older. So that doesn't necessarily mean that he can't be the guy for us, or somebody that we look to bring in. Somebody is going to buy Sesko in the Premier League. Somebody is going to take an educated gamble on him, and it's going to be the right thing. Just because you don't start for Leipzig, to me, is not, I feel like that's like on the surface not a good thing, but that won't stop Arsenal fans for salivating over Evan Ferguson, who will cost 3 times as much, but also cannot start above Welbeck and João Pedro. So to me, it's more about the profile of the player and what do you see when you watch him. I don't think not starting for Leipzig is because he's not good. He's not being benched because he's not good. He's a young player that I think are trying not to overwhelm him with too much shit. So they have somebody that they bought in that Openda guy, because didn't he replaced somebody, didn't he? He replaced somebody that was there, so it's fine. I like him. I would also look at the guy at Sporting, Gyökeres. I would look at maybe Vlahovic as a last option or whatever, but somebody of that mold. Please don't go out there and get a small guy. Please don't. Slick says Lukaku has unfinished business in the Prem, perfect for Arsenal, loan Nketiah to Roma. No, it's okay. I think I can do without Lukaku at Arsenal. Yeah. So, yeah. T Power says Arteta should not be given one more penny. This is a mess that he has created. I don't trust him in the transfer market. Sack for Arteta and bring in a proven manager. Danny Welbeck is available on loan. Might take you up on that, to be honest. No, I'm just joking. Ghost says he replaced Nkunku. Kenneth says, why don't we go finish some young striker instead of all these names you guys keep repeating? I think people want they're like, okay, well, we need a proven goal scorer. We need proven. I don't actually feel like we have to get I don't think we have to go out there and get a fucking Benzema or a Lewandowski or these types of guys. I think that's those are pipe dreams. I don't think people genuinely understand how bad our striker options are and how we're really dealing with, in terms of quality, our center forward position probably has the least quality in it. It's just the truth. Probably winger second is our least quality position. We have more quality in our midfield and defense than we do in our striker position. And that might seem really harsh on Gabriel Jesus, but I'm here to just give you guys the real. I'm not even going to beat around the bush. Gabriel Jesus has been poor this season. He had one good season, actually had one good 3 months of the season. When the season started, I don't know if you guys remember, but after the Spurs game, he went on a nasty goal drought. Last season, he went 11 games without scoring a goal, then went to the World Cup and got injured, then was out for 4 months, then came back and didn't look the same. And he hasn't looked the same since. And he only looked good in the Champions League, and that was in 2 or 3 games because he's been injured. So when you think about, you have a striker that doesn't strike, that also has lost his burst, his sharpness and all of that. That's also a head case. And the next guy you have up is Nketiah. And the next guy you have up is Havertz. And the next guy you have up is Trossard. We have so little quality up front that I genuinely feel like people think that you need to bring in Benzema to solve this problem. I think you could bring in any of the guys that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, and we would be flying, because it's that bad. It's that bad. I'm telling you. Like I said, Evan Ferguson, Welbeck, and João Pedro are better forward options, striker options than what we have. And they're in 8th or 6th or something like that. Bowen is a better striker option than what we have. It's that bad. Like, I'm not joking. I'm being very serious with you guys right now. It will not take Benzema to solve this problem. Now, you don't want to go out there and get somebody that's just not good enough or a short-term fix, but you do want to go out there and get somebody, like I said, in the 21 to 25-year-old range, somewhere between Sesko and Osimhen, and it'll solve your problem. And just don't buy another shrimp. Get somebody with some aerial presence. You know, it's just not going to be that hard. I'm telling you. I'm being so honest with you guys. You know, Social Join says I'll take Benzema on a loan easily. Do you have Benzema money though? Like, people, go look at his wages and ask yourself genuinely, do you think that that's a realistic thing to even be talking about right now? Let's be serious. Anybody would take Benzema on loan. I would take Ronaldo on loan. I would take Messi on loan. I would take Luis Suarez on loan. Of course, I would take these players on loan, but you can't take these players on loan. And we know why, you know? MM says, lest you want to go the city route, you lot have to wait till the summer. Unless you want to take the city route, you lot will have to wait until the summer. Foxy says, Awani, I would have been a better option for a lot of the teams if he was still fit. Impressive when he plays for Forest. Awani is a good player. I still think that he's below the level required. But, you know, honestly, when he was playing good, if you would have stuck him in our team, like Hwang and like Solanke, he would have scored goals. I genuinely don't think people understand how bad we are striker-wise. We're in the pits, really. We really are. Daniil says, Arteta wants aerial presence from our left-sided midfielder. He wants our striker to be able to do that, to do what Jesus does, drop in, link play, occasionally score. I think that's what he wanted in the past. I don't think that we'll go after another false nine. I think there's a reason why David Ornstein has said that we're looking at Osimhen, Sesko, a couple of other players, and Evan Ferguson. Like, those links alone make me feel like Arteta also went after Dusan Vlahovic before he went for Jesus. So I'm not buying into this idea that this is exactly what Arteta wants. I think this is what Arteta got, because he's trying to evolve the team a little bit. And he started off with Jesus because he knew he could play the system and all this kind of stuff, and he couldn't get a Vlahovic type. But we will go back to the Vlahovic type. I don't believe that this is exactly what Arteta wants. In fact, if Arteta really wanted that, then he would let Jesus off of a leash. When Jesus has been playing the season, when have you seen him pick up the ball the way that he did the season prior? Arteta has completely stopped that. He's made his strikers stay in the box. So I don't think he wants that false nine. I don't think he wants it anymore. Now, if he really didn't want it, what he should have done is gone out and got a striker in the summer, but he overthought it. And now we're talking about things that we should have done, before. But when we get a striker, it most likely will not be another false nine, because the false nine is dead. Let's be real. Football goes in cycles, and we probably hit the back end of the false ninery. Now it's time for a complete number nine. O'Malley says Arteta wanted that diamond midfield this season, and injuries have stopped it. Well, stop building your team around injury-prone players. I don't know what to tell you. When I look at quotes from Arteta, or like, what did I read? It said Partey was already considered as a candidate for sale until the end of June. But then Arteta decided to keep him. So anything can happen there in the summer. For now, it's very quiet, and he's injured now, so there's no concrete updates so far. And Arteta also said in a press conference that, not having Thomas Partey and Timber has really stopped our plans, because it would have made us more unpredictable. Building your plans around somebody who has never been able to maintain fitness is just, for me, just like setting yourself up for failure. If your whole system was based around a left back and an injury-prone DM, then I don't know what to tell you. And Kai Havertz, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you, because the whole thing was you could have kept what we were doing last season and just made sure you had a plan B. You could have just kept what we were doing last season and just added upon it, but you broke it down and tried to start something anew and had an incomplete project. So you had something that was probably one or two pieces away from being done. You broke that apart, tried to fix and make something completely different. It was built upon players that are not here or never fit enough. So I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. He wanted the diamond midfield. Okay. You didn't need it. You didn't need it. All you needed to do was replace Granite and bring in a striker. That is all you needed to do. And bring in Timber. Oh, well, that injury, whatever, that was unlucky. That's all you needed to do. That's it. You didn't need to do the diamond. You didn't need to restructure. You didn't need to do shit. You just needed to get a striker that could strike and somebody better than Granit Xhaka. You could have, like it just wasn't, it didn't need to be this. It didn't need to be this, it didn't need to. Like, he didn't need to start over. He didn't need to, but he did. And he overthought it. And he probably decided that, he wanted to make sure that he didn't get done on the counter anymore and stuff like that. But it's gone backwards. It really has. So yeah, I don't know what to say. Boy says Jesus actually counts for homegrown. LJM says, yes, I believe in Edu. Social Join says, why are you playing one style? The team has different personnel. Tawanda says 3-2-4-1. We should just go to a 4-2-3-1 and just do the simple thing. Have a number 10 that creates, have a striker that strikes, have a base of 2 midfielders, one being a more ball playing, one being a ball winner. Like, think about how nicely a 4-2-3-1 fits the players that we have. It fits it way better, in my opinion, because then you don't require Odegaard to go deeper. The reason why it's a requirement for Odegaard to play so much deeper, and he's done a good job doing it, is because Kai Havertz can't be a part of buildup. So if you eliminate that altogether and you just play a double pivot with Declan Rice and Thomas Partey when he maybe comes back, or Jorginho, and you just put Odegaard in the 10 and just hope that one of your strikers hits the ball in the back of the net at some point in the game, I think that suits us a lot better. And just make it very, very simple. Chris Summer says Partey missed 5 games last season, I believe. What about the other 2 seasons though? This is his 4th season. So as much as people are telling me that last season he only missed 5 games, a lot of that was because he also didn't play in European fixtures. He didn't play in cups, so this season he hasn't even played in Champions League. Like, this is a player that you have to manage to get even 20 something games out of him. And he couldn't even do that this season. So I don't care. Like, he's injury prone, you guys. Like, who is he even if you didn't count this season here, 2 out of 3 seasons, he's been unreliable. So what's the likelihood of him continue? Like, if last season was more of a fluke than anything else, so there's no way to get out of it. There's no way to get out of it. There's no reason to build your squad around Thomas Partey, a player that you were open to letting go at the start of the summer window, which, again, I told you guys that, but everybody was on my neck and saying, no, there's no way that Arteta is selling Thomas Partey. It's been written so many times. We were willing to sell him. It's ridiculous. Come on now. Aaliyah says he's missed 58 games since 2020. Come on now. Kasim says, yeah, but our project last season was based around Partey. We gave us both defensive and offensive stability. Well, that's your problem, but we bought in Declan Rice to replace Thomas Partey. Like, and then Arteta tried to do something different and all this type of stuff. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how much longer we can do the Thomas Partey thing. You cannot build your team around somebody that's missed 58 games since 2020. You just fundamentally cannot, even if you think he's an elite player. Like, get that out of your head. That's the reason why we're such a bad team, is because we build our team around players that are not fit. Zinchenko, Jesus, and Thomas Partey. 3 players that have been injured almost like so much since they've been at Arsenal. I don't know what to tell you, Tara says, that's cap. Let's not do that. Any midfielder can do what Partey does. Otherwise, why didn't replace him? I've never said that Thomas Partey is somebody that, like, other players can do what he does, but other teams are better than us without having Thomas Partey. So it's not like you have to have Thomas Partey in your team or you can't be a great team. There are solutions outside of Thomas Partey, and people don't think bigger. They're so desperate to keep a player based on who he is on comps and who he's been on the odd time that he's played a game for us, rather than seeing it for what it really is. We need to move beyond him, and building your team around him was stupid. It just is. We should have just been normal and said, okay, well, Thomas Partey is going to be somebody that if we have him, we have him. If we don't, we don't. Build a midfield structure without him. that works, that doesn't require having Havertz and Zinchenko playing out of position, and just be normal. It's like, I don't get it. I really don't understand this whole like fascination, with a player that's never here. It's weird to me. Aha says 4-2-3-1 in the Liverpool game, bar the crap finishing. First half was arguably our best half all season in terms of overall performance, defensive control, attack creation, fluidity. I agree with that. Just play a 4-2-3-1, like, because it's something that somebody said that was really cool. Was it was nice to see midfielders midfield, right? And against Liverpool. And as much as people hate Jorginho or don't like him or whatever, I didn't even want him here. You cannot deny that he had a good game against Liverpool. He did. He had a good game against Liverpool. He didn't get overrun. Him and Declan Rice seem to have a good balance. It won't work in every single game because obviously he'll get overrun in certain matches, but it was nice to just see the midfield do the job and the defense do their job. It was nice not to see such a heavy emphasis on inversion. And that's something that I think Arsenal need to think about more often, is have your midfielders just midfield and have your defenders just defend. It'll simplify things. It will make, it'll basically mean that Zinchenko is a non-factor, but I feel like that's okay at this point. He's not fit enough, I think, for us to build our team around. So we need solutions outside of Zinchenko coming into midfield. It was just nice for our midfield to do the midfielding. It really was. Kai Havertz basically played like a traditional number 9. He didn't drop back too far. He wasn't creating anything. Mostly he did the hold up play and played it off of other people and tried to get into the box. He failed at the clinical part of the game, but I just think it suits us a lot better right now. Anton Dunn says, generally, we need to simplify things and allow players to play with more freedom. I agree. And that's what I would like to see, like, moving forward for the rest of the season, is simplify the way that we play and just get back to basics. I think that will help the team a lot. If you have a double pivot in there, you have more structure. You don't just have a single pivot. You can allow the likes of Ben White and other players to overlap a little bit more when they gain their fitness back. Odegaard can just do what he does best, which is create chances, which is what he's done a lot in the last couple of games. As much as people don't like Odegaard, he's created enough chances and he should have way more assists. And so what you really want him in the pockets, creating those chances, right? Even though Arteta has basically made a number 10 into a number 8 and Odegaard has done a good job at it, his best job is it like in the pocket. Like that's where he's at his best. He's a natural number 10. And so, yeah, I agree. Just make things simple. Just make things really simple for the players. Get rid of this whole very convoluted style of play. I know that Arteta, he really tried to think of a way to take us to the next level with a new structure and new players and trying to be more unpredictable, but it just hasn't come off because players have been injured and it's just been too complicated, and too much of it is based around players playing out of position, and we're not getting enough bang for that buck. Last season, Jesus and Zinchenko kind of playing outside of their position gave us a lot, but now that their form has dipped and their fitness has dipped, it really isn't helping. It's really not helping. And so just go back to basics. It's fine. I just want to see normal play, just be normal. I don't know how else to say it. Just be normal. Play a 4-2-3-1, So yes, Kenneth says we play more on the wings, not so much done in the center. Art says, yeah, but Arteta wants more control. Arteta wants to play like City, which is good, but simply we are not City. We don't have we did really well last season having an element of control, but also having an element of chaos. And we've lost that balance. We didn't need to go so far in the other direction, I think. I think we did need to figure out a way to slow the game down and to have control in moments, but we went too far in the other direction. And so Arteta needs to figure out a way to give us more of that chaos and that unpredictability going forward. That doesn't require 2 inverted fullbacks and nonsense at the back. It needs to require your front players getting the ball in areas that can hurt the opposition. And right now, because everything is so slow and so predictable, we're killing our forwards. Our forwards are not the types that can play up against 3 or 4 defenders at a time. They need to be played into space. I think we did a really good job at that against Liverpool, actually. It's just playing the likes of Reece Nelson and Bukayo Saka and Martinelli into space. We just haven't done it enough. Just go long and have them run onto the ball. We don't always have to tiki-taka through the lines. We don't need Zinchenko standing on the ball for 5 minutes trying to figure out the pass and all these intricate passes that aren't taking us anywhere. Just take it back to basics. Take it back to basics a little bit and watch the team flourish. We've overthought this season a lot. And I understand why Arteta has overthought things, because he probably went into a spiral because of how poor we were at the back end of the season. But we just only really needed to buy 2 or 3 players that, upgraded us in midfield and, attack. And we've done the opposite. We've just undid everything, all the good work that was done last season, and we're paying the price. So he just needs to go back to basics. It's not that deep. Second Soch says, of all the signings over the last 2 windows, of all the signings over the last 2 windows, the only ones that have been consistent impact is Rice, discounting Timber due to injury. Yeah, I mean, Jesus and Zinchenko were good last season, but, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, over the last 2 seasons, I don't know. I still feel like Zinchenko and Jesus were good signings. I just think we weirdly outgrew them very quickly because they did make us really good last season. And all we needed to do was just kind of modify things a little bit, and we didn't really do that. We kind of did something nonsense. But I kind of agree with you that, like, maybe Rice has given us consistent value. Timber got injured last 2 seasons. Yeah, like, yeah. Zinchenko and Jesus physically have really fallen off of a cliff. That's the biggest thing for me. But yeah, we've had some other players that have been consistent, though. I think just the last window was so weird because it was like Zinchenko and Jesus, their introduction to the team took us from top 4 to title challengers. And then we quickly needed better than them, like the next summer. And I've never seen a team outgrow signings that quickly. We outgrew Jesus so quickly. It's insane. And all we needed to bring in was a striker that could strike. I genuinely do believe that. I don't think we needed to just continue on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I get what you're saying, but yeah, let me drink some of this coffee because it's freaking cold now. Where it says, if you turn down another offer for Nketiah, then Balogun taking AS Monaco further than your club in Europe would be a nightmare. Are Monaco in Champions League? If you turn down another offer for Nketiah, then Balogun taking AS Monaco further than your club in Europe would be a nightmare. Are Monaco in Champions League or no? Because it would be impossible for them to go further than us in Europe if they're not in the same competition that we are. So, yeah, I'm not sure how that happens. Maybe they are in Champions League. Let me check. No, they're in Europa League. So there's no way that there's no way that Balogun can take him. They're not even in Europe. Are they? Yeah. So there's no way that he can actually take them further than us. So that's actually like a non thing, for honest. Second Soch says, I meant over the last 2 windows. So last summer and the January window. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, you're right. Like, nobody's really been that super consistent, except for Rice. Lars says, just to be honest, Arteta has to leave. He's making Arsenal Football Club turn into a laughing matter. It was already a laughing matter before he came in. Let's be honest. Like, anybody that's saying that Arteta has made us into a banter club is kind of like, be serious. We were already one when he came in, and he has made us better, but not good enough. It could be the case that he's taken us as far as he can. And I don't know why that's such a taboo conversation. Most managers are not arsons and these types. Pep and Klopp have stayed at Manchester City and Liverpool because they have shown that they can win consistently, and they're world-class managers. So the idea that the conversation around Mikel Arteta has to be like, oh, well, he took us from obscurity and brought us up, and so how dare you even consider? I would consider moving on from him. I would. Because if there's a manager that could get 5% more out of this group, we're winning a lot of trophies. And so I want that guy. If Arteta's not that guy, then I want him out the door. Like, it's just not that deep, I don't understand why people are so beholden to this guy. But I also didn't grow up in I didn't really grow up in an era with Arsenal where, you know, I don't know. I haven't grown up in an era that like I don't worship Arteta because I've seen what an Arsenal team looks like when they're actually really good. And this team is good, but it's nowhere near what people make it out to seem. This era is not as good as what people make it out to seem. I think last season was probably the best season for a lot of young Arsenal fans because we were actually in a title race and we were good and we were playing good football. But we are miles away from being anything like a team of like the doubles winning team or, the Invincibles. We're miles off of that, you know? We're miles off. Like, I really want to be honest with you guys. Like, we're miles off. We need better recruitment. We need to do more with the money that we get. The mentality is not there. The players need support on the pitch from better players, and we may need another manager. I don't know why it's such a taboo conversation. But I think people genuinely, they don't want to go into Wenger out again, which I understand because that was traumatic. But they also just don't want to admit that maybe he's not as good as people thought he was. Like, there was a point in time where I thought that maybe he could become generational. But for me, there's no signs of a generational manager. There's a good coach, but there's nothing that says that he's going to do something that is like a 1 in a million thing. Like a 1 in a million thing would have been him winning the league last season. That would have been like, oh my gosh, maybe he is generational. But somebody that with so much money spent and so much time under no pressure, being able to get us top 4 and keep us in a top 4 race this season is not generational. It's not. It's what most managers can do with infinite resources and tons of time under no pressure. Do you see what I'm saying? And so if it becomes the case that he's not generational, which is what it would require for him to be the guy for us right now, then, like, it's just not that deep to start thinking about other options. That's all. Like, that's all I'm saying. This project cannot be about Mikel Arteta having to be at the forefront. If it is, then it's already failed. The chances of us having another manager that's going to stay for 10, 15 years, 20 years is ridiculous. In modern football, managers get like 4 years max most of the time, unless you're Pepper Klopp, and those managers are special. So that's we have to stop trying to get another Arsene. Tawanda says Arteta needs to revert back to what he was doing last season. Arteta has a hell of a brain. I'm still skeptical of him. Definitely needs to go back to basics for sure. Chris Fraser says the man who lays the foundation isn't always the guy that puts the final coat of paint on the walls, hangs the chandeliers. Just saying. I agree. Eddie Howe will get so much credit for what he's done with Newcastle in a very short period of time, but he will be out the door before Arteta. He'll be out the door before Arteta because they're not building this project for Newcastle around Eddie Howe. They're building it around what they want that club to be in the next 15 years. And that doesn't mean that Eddie Howe has to be in charge. Arsenal have decided that this project is about Mikel Arteta. That's what it feels like. Because to be something that's not even a consideration for me is ridiculous at this stage. We're almost 5 years in. We're 4.5 years in, or almost 4.5 years in, going into the 5th year next season. And it feels like there's no pressure whatsoever on Mikel Arteta. That's crazy to me. Unknown C says, I agree. Honestly, I think Arteta has reached his ceiling unless he does a madness in the UCL, EPL. I don't think his experience to take us over the line. And why would you expect him to? He's a novice manager. Why would you expect him to have the experience? Again, he would have to be a 1 in a million, once in a lifetime generational manager for all these things that we have expectations of to come to fruition, like winning the league last season, winning the Champions League this season. Those are things that happen when it's once in a lifetime. I think the generational manager that came out in the like that was probably Nagelsmann. What is the likelihood of having multiple generational managers that come out in the last 5 years? It's very rare, And so Arteta may just be a good coach, and that's fine. And he's rebuilt the club, and he was probably the right guy at the time because, he knew Arsenal and he knew what Arsenal was about and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that he has to continue on. I'm not saying that he has to be sacked tomorrow, but I'm saying that it doesn't need to be Arteta only. They're banking too much on him. Seda says, off topic, but winning the Community Shield always seems to derail a club season. Look at the clubs that have won it and then pattern for the next 5 years. Yeah, the Community Shield was a funny thing because it really wasn't that big of a deal, but it looked like a big deal to our players or whatever. And I get it because, like, obviously, like, it's the vibes and all that kind of stuff and it's Man City or whatever. But you're right. You're right. Like, winning the Community Shield usually is a derailer. I think Liverpool won the Community Shield the season before we did. T Power says, I saw us win the league titles in doubles. This team and manager will win nothing. If you've seen winning teams before, you know that we're not quite there yet. We could get there with a couple of really good additions and maybe some different leaders, that, outside of the players playing. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to throw these players out. I'm unwilling to throw these players out. I think we've done really well to build a solid foundation of players like Saliba and Rice and Saka and Martinelli and Odegaard. These are players that I'm not willing to even entertain the idea that they can't win a title with Arsenal, but they need other players around them, and they may need a better coach. Like, that's it. Art says the Arsenal board and some of our fans need to start thinking about the future of winning beyond Arteta. Some fans supporting Arteta and not the club. I agree with that. I agree with that 110%. I think if you even say anything about Arsenal, like, people are saying you're so ungrateful, look at where he took us from. And I'm just like, it's not ungrateful to want better still, like, this is Arsenal. We're not Brighton that went from the champions or the championship all the way up to the European spots. And even they were okay with letting Graham Potter go despite all the good work that he did, and they got De Zerbi, and De Zerbi's better. So the idea that we should be beholden to Arteta because he's changed the narrative around the club over the last 4 years, but hasn't changed the status in terms of trophies, I think is disingenuous, you guys. Like, it's not that deep. To me, it's not that deep. I'm not that beholden to the manager, despite me liking him. I like him, okay. I just want somebody that's going to take these players up to the next level. Blaze says, Arteta is a good manager, but some Arsenal fans in Twitter truly believe he is better than Wenger. The disrespect to Wenger and Henry I'm seeing in Twitter is absolutely disgusting. Think about how good Arsene was and how he didn't even achieve as much as he probably should have. That's how hard the job is. For Arsene to go toe-to-toe with freaking Sir Alex Ferguson for the time that he did is unheard of. It's hard. I think only Jose Mourinho did it as well, like towards the end of, Fergie's reign. But to go up against that, that's what you need. Like, basically our Fergie is Pep. They're doing everything. They're winning everything. They're the best team in the world. And it's not even really that close, And so to go toe-to-toe with them, look at the type of manager that we needed. And even he struggled with the team that he had. So what makes you think that Arteta, who's nowhere near as good as Arsene was, that doesn't have the world-class players in his team, like Henry, like Bergkamp, like Vieira, like these guys, what makes you think he's going to be able to do it? You see what I'm saying? Like, we've seen this before and what's required to even nick the armor of a juggernaut like a Fergie or a Pep. It's hard. It's not easy to overtake these types of dynasties once they start going. It's hard. Even Liverpool. Think about Liverpool. World-class manager, world-class players, only won one Premier League. What makes you think Arteta has the minerals to do it? Beyond the idea that he's Arteta and he has the PR behind him. There's nothing to suggest, so it's hard. It's not easy. And that's why I'm saying you need a world-class manager even to get in the conversation consistently. It's hard when you're going up against Man City. We know it, If you've seen teams of the past have to go up against Fergie, you know how hard it is. The fact that we were able to get over them so many times under Arsene, people really need to, like, it was not easy because they were the best team in England for a long time. And Arsene nicked their armor several times. And think about the team he had to have in order to do it. Think about the type of manager he had to be to win those trophies. He had to psychologically tell those boys that they could go an entire season without losing a game. He had to get into their psyche to make that happen. It's hard. That's all I'm saying. Where it says Arteta is the longest serving interim manager I've seen survive at a top 4 club. He's an anomaly, not the exception. Art says everyone knows Arsenal has a very capable set of players. Think about the team with a world-class manager. Unknown C says off the topic of management changes, just to add, I don't blame Arteta. I've always maintained that the club structure isn't right. How can a novice manager be given unilateral power with no pressure? I agree with you. It's not, I don't even, it's at the point where I do think that, like, you have to look at the powers that be and say, how have we gotten into a situation where we have a novice manager, but he has all this power and he's making mistakes and there's no consequences for them? How is he continuously missing out on his targets and there's nothing is done about it? It's not personal to Mikel Arteta. I think when you're starting off your first job and it's a massive job like this, it's a huge undertaking. It is. Lampard failed, Pirlo failed. It's hard to come in your first job and to come up like one of your first jobs and it be the club that you know and you love and all this type of stuff, and for that club to be in the pits too, and try to turn it around. It's hard. Arteta's done a good job with the tools that he's had, but ultimately that doesn't mean that he has to continue. Or it should be like this taboo conversation. And I think about, how rivals react to Arteta. A lot of them, I think, speak about Arteta in a kind way and kind of like, because they want him to stay. Because I think a lot of rivals know that if we were to get this same group with a better manager, we would be flying. So a lot of them talk about Arteta and like, oh, you should keep him, you should do this and that. If they were talking about Arteta like they're hoping that he leaves and all this type of stuff, then I would know that they were nobody's afraid of Arteta because they know he's probably not the guy. That's all I'm saying. When Ollie was doing bad, I was like, you guys should keep Ollie, like he's done a good job. He kept you second, this and that, because I was like, I'm not afraid of Ollie. I'm not afraid of Ollie. I know if he stays, they won't do anything. Same thing with Ten Hag. I'm like, he wanted you guys care about Cup. How would you want him out? Because you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. The T Power says Arteta is our Ollie, Arteta at the wheel. No, not Arteta at the wheel. So yeah, you guys, but I went a little bit longer than I wanted to because I'm not sure if I'm going to be back for the afternoon show because I have some things to prepare for in the next couple of days, but I'll keep you guys posted. If something big happens, of course, I'll come back, but just make sure you have your notifications on because if I do a show, it will be at 9 p.m. UK time. And Boy has asked me to do a show on internal solutions, and we can definitely get that done as well because from now until the end of the season, we might just have internal solutions, and I'm all for getting a lot more out of the group that you have. If we don't get anything in January and we have to wait into the summer window, then we need to start looking at the squad a little bit differently. We need to start thinking about how to get the most out of this group, the academy, the squad players, all those types of things. So I'm definitely willing to have that conversation. And so keep your notifications on just in case I do come back at 9 p.m. But if I don't, I'll see you guys will I? Yeah, I'll see you guys on 1 p.m. Tomorrow. I'll see you guys on the next one. Like and subscribe, and bye, guys.